Let's get into it. This is going to be seemingly a pretty meaty blog. This one is called Revitalizing Your Overwatch 2 Experience, and it covers everything from the competitive rework to the balance changes that are coming, projectile size changes, loads of stuff, role passive changes. So loads of stuff to cover in this blog. So it says, the newest season of Overwatch 2 is just around the corner, and with it comes some exciting changes. During our Overwatch 2 What's Next panel at BlizzCon 2023, we shared a sneak peek at some of the philosophy guiding many of the system changes coming this year. Read on for details of what you can expect in Overwatch 2 Season 9 Champions. Updating the competitive experience. We've heard your feedback on competitive play over the last 8 seasons, and we have some big updates coming that will give you the opportunity to build on your skills and see how you progress through the competitive ranks. We built a better system that's more accurate while also helping convey the meaning behind the mathematical complexity of a modern matchmaker and bring clear insights about what impacts your rank in every match. Seeing how and why your rank changes. One piece of feedback we heard is that just knowing your rank doesn't say anything about why your rank went up or down. Competitive updates originally worked to provide updates that reflected your growth as a player across multiple matches, but with the goal to provide greater transparency in each individual match. We're going back to updating your rank after every match and showing how much progress you gain or lose between each skill division. This is funny because we're just going back slowly towards where Overwatch 1 was. We're also displaying modifiers that affected your last match below the rank progression bar. Some modifiers help provide transparency in the matchmaking for each match, like getting a boost when you defeat a team that was more favored to win, while other modifiers show if your rank is calibrating, like going on a huge win streak, proving you belong in a higher rank. Feedback is the driving force behind these changes, and we want to hear your thoughts on competitive play now that you'll have more context on each game. The progress bar shows how much your rank has increased as a result of the match. The bigger the highlighted section, the more rank was gained or lost. The reasons why more rank might have been gained or lost are explained in the modifiers below. So some examples here are win streak, bonus for a high win streak, uphill battle, you weren't favored to win but you won. I don't know about that one because I know like internally the you're not favored to win was like 2% you're not favored to win, 1% you're not favored to win. But it makes it sound like you were, 70-30 up against it, which is also going to be the revenue split should you help me achieve Partner Plus. So consider upping my 50-50 matchmaking to a 70-30 by dropping a Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 sub and help me reach Partner Plus. Loss streak, penalty for high loss rate, reversal, you were favored and you lost. Damn, that's gonna sting. Expected, you were favored and you won. Wait, that's a negative? That shouldn't be like a negative. Calibration, bonus for a high win rate. Volatile, you lost calibration matches after ranking up. I don't know if all of these are gonna feel good to hear. Some of these are definitely gonna feel extra painful. More, I think the language, I don't mind the substance of being told what you're being told, but it's like the language of it feels somehow not right with me. You lost calibration matches after ranking up, right? Like, having it put that way feels like a bit of a sting to the player who might have climbed up, You lost after ranking up because you're not ready to be in this rank. True, but don't slap me like that, matchmaker. Bring a fresh start with placement matches and rank resets. With both the changes to competitive play and the broader changes to gameplay starting the season, we feel this is a perfect option for everyone to start fresh as they compete on the rank leaderboards. To accomplish this, we're reintroducing placement matches and resetting everyone's competitive skill rank. That says skill rank, doesn't yet say MMR. I'm curious to read on whether this is cosmetic versus how much is actually meaningful. Your journey to the top begins with 10 all new placement matches with everyone's ranks reset. These 10 placement matches provides you with a high stakes opportunity to make big gains determining your new starting rank. As you progress through these matches, there will be a predicted starting rank after each match. You'll only have one chance this year to run your placement matches, so pick your best heroes and stay hydrated, because these games count for a lot. Damn, putting the pressure on. My understanding is that what they are doing is resetting everyone to the middle, not to the bottom. So everyone is going to be roughly pushed towards the middle and probably start around like gold plat. And then they will be, assessed from that point onwards. I think the biggest takeaway is it's going to be a lot more volatile is the ultimate thing. Whether you're GM or whether you're bronze, essentially these 10 matches will be high volatility matches where a win could shoot you up quite significantly. Similarly, a loss might throw you down quite significantly. Presumably built on top of this as well. If you lose a game you were expected to win, the rank matchmaker might look on that quite badly. And then should you lose 2 games that you were expected to win, the matchmaker's gonna be like, okay, this guy sucks ass, put him down. But yeah, they're telling you, like, basically they're warning you this is gonna count for a lot and you won't get one for another year. Because they basically said this is like a once a year thing. I think this is a good thing to do, to be honest. So like there's been some discussion online about like whether what does an MMR reset or what does an SR/MR reset do? I think that like the most important thing it does is just like erase a lot of potential buildup of dust, let's say a buildup of rust that can accumulate for many reasons, right? The first that comes to my mind is simply people who haven't played that much over the course of the last year, right? It has been a year since Overwatch 2 came out, 7 years since Overwatch 1 came out, and people are still carrying MMR from any period in that time. And a lot has changed. Let's just talk about Overwatch 2. A lot has changed in the year since Overwatch 2's release, right? Like the role passives have changed and will change again. This whole competitive season, as we'll get into, will have a bunch of balance changes. There's been hero reworks, 5v5, obviously, but that's not Overwatch 2 within Overwatch 2. But even within Overwatch 2, so many balance patches, so many heroes have become really strong and really weak. And just to give examples, like let's say you started as a support and you played in Season 1. That was probably the hardest time to play support, right? That was a lot of like dive meta. Supports hadn't got their Giga buffs. Since then, they've released multiple supports who are all kind of easier to survive on. So if you even put a Life Weaver back in early Overwatch 1, he'd be a lot more like current Life Weaver. He'd be a lot more shifty and elusive to kill and would have survived more anyways. On top of that, he and a bunch of other supports have gotten buffs since they were released. If you, let's say, played in Season 1 and stopped playing because you're like, damn, it's too fucking hard to play support. If you came back now, you'd be like, wow, it's a lot easier. So you'd actually find it easier potentially to play. Of course, you'd be rusty and you'd need some time to get back into it. But overall, the gameplay would feel easier to you because you've experienced a level of Overwatch where playing support was harder to survive on. Conversely, the opposite can happen where if you hard grinded Junker Queen then, you might have climbed a lot. But now she's not so strong. And now if you came back, and let's say you haven't been either playing a lot or you've only been playing a very minimal amount in that time. Or yeah, Mauga release is another great example of like, if you just hard locked Mauga, and we saw so many people climb up so fast. If you hard locked Mauga during his release, you probably climbed a bunch. Kiriko on release, you probably climbed a bunch. And then if you stopped playing a lot, or if you only played like 5 games to keep your placements, suddenly everything is thrown off because the 100 games you spent playing OP Mauga versus the 10 games you spent playing him since he got nerfed, they're not weighted equally, but your rank has gotten a much bigger boost, right, from the 100 games, and the 10 games are not going to shift you very much. It very much happens. It happened a lot towards the end of Overwatch 1. I remember it very vividly. People would like grind a hero that got buffed and then camp and barely play afterwards. And it creates frustration for everyone. The people around them are going to be frustrated. And that person can also end up getting frustrated because maybe you don't want to be at that high rank anymore. Maybe you are afraid that now your heroes got nerfed or you haven't played in a while and you're rusty. That should you play, you'd lose a lot. So you don't want to play on that account because you're like, shit, if I play, I'm just going to lose a bunch of games. People are going to be mad at me. I don't know what I'm doing. It's not my fault. That's one big reason for resetting everyone's MMR, or just at least soft resetting it and resetting everyone's rank. And also, I think there's a psychological benefit, which is that players like fresh starts, right? So players often can feel like, I think the game is kind of conspiring against me a little bit. I feel like it's not giving me my rank properly. And there is some merit to that line of thinking. Like there definitely can be accounts that get kind of MMR stuck. It's not a frequent occurrence. It's not an occurrence that happens to a lot of people. But I've definitely noticed a lot of discrepancies in how much even my own accounts sometimes climb compared to each other. Like some climb very easily, others climb very difficult, like very hard, and I'm the same player playing. And it's not simply like I played 5 games on one and 500 games on the other, just generally the pattern I've noticed. So it can alleviate that and can also help with the psychological factor of the player feeling like I deserve another shot. It's unlikely, this change is unlikely to change the rank drastically of people who already play a lot, because chances are if you play a lot, again, barring some exceptional circumstances, you're probably going to go up or down or stay the same depending on where you actually belong. This is the most beneficial for the people who don't play a lot, who either don't play a lot and haven't been climbing as fast as their skills perhaps have been climbing, or don't play a lot and are clearly worse players than their rank says, but have been camping it. Rise up to the rank of champion. So how high can you go? We're introducing the ultimate rank champion. This is the most prestigious tier above Grandmaster, intended to show who is the best among the most skilled players in the game. Even with the boost that placement matches can provide, top ranking players will still need to win a lot of games to reach Champion 1 and prove they are the best of the best. This is the most exclusive rank in the history of Overwatch, and we're on the edge of our seats to see who will achieve such heights Season 9 and beyond. That does sound pretty hype. It looks really cool. I like the icon. Looks really nice. But again, I think the irony is that if you're top 500, you probably have the champion Like it's the top 500 supersedes the champion. And I don't know how many people will get to see their champion rank, because this, by the way, is nothing but a cosmetic change. Like, I want to emphasize here, because I think a lot of people feel like changing and adding a rank is somehow changing the matchmaking. It will not. The matchmaking remains exactly the same, because if you think about it, remove the icons for a moment and go back to like how Overwatch 1 used to measure people simply with a numerical SR. Internally, that's still happening, right? Internally, you're either 1500 or you're 3000 or you're 4500 or whatever it is. To anyone who didn't remember what it was like or wasn't there in Overwatch 1, your Grandmaster start at 4000. The serious elements of Grandmaster didn't really start to like 4300. Like, that's when people were like really good and, you know, semi-pros and pros. If you're GM1, you have an internal matchmaking, right? You have like an internal number. So that's why there's like, even when you reach GM1, there's like a tier within, like that's how the top 500 ladder works. Like, some people are internally rated higher than others. And there was that whole controversy with like when everyone reached max SR and you couldn't get any higher, and you were basing people's ranking on their Overwatch 1 levels. And then they fixed that so that you could have a higher max SR basically. And it's almost impossible to reach. Ultimately, all this is doing is taking the people who are in GM1 and separating them out, right? So if you were GM1, you'll just transition into champion so that you can better designate where within GM1 someone is lying, right? Essentially, that's how you should think about what the champion rank is. It's simply splitting GM1 into further tiers. Ultimately, if you were GM1 and you were getting matched in lobby with GM3s or GM4s, or God forbid, like Master 1, that's still going to happen, because ultimately what the matchmaker did was, you know, your MMR was, let's say, 4500 as like the high GM1. And there weren't other 4500s around, or there was only like 4 4500s, or even people in that vague vicinity playing at the time. So the matchmaker was like, all right, 4 of you are going in the lobby, and then we're going to dump in a bunch of Masters with you guys too, because like these are the next highest ranked players available. That's how the system works, right? If you're trying to matchmake for a Grandmaster, but there aren't Grandmasters available, it's going to start pulling the nearest available person. It's the same in any other rank. If you're looking for diamonds and there's not that many diamonds around, it's going to start pulling plats or maybe masters, right? It'll search for a little bit and it'll widen. Then it'll search for a little bit. It'll widen the scope of how far it's looking, because it's trying to prioritize giving you a quickish game while also not giving you too wide a game. To summarize, if you were GM1 and now you're champion, you still could get matched with like a master player if no one else is around. So it doesn't change fundamentally how the matchmaking works, but it will cosmetically help show you people's skill perhaps a bit more accurately. Previously, if you see GM1, you don't know what that means. You don't know if they're like barely hanging on to GM1, or if they're like the kind of player who can like basically never drop out of GM1, even if they lose like 20 games, because they're just that high up in the MMR. Now, it might be the difference between being champion 5 and being champion 1. And that could be a huge difference in terms of the skill level. Again, as we said with Overwatch 1, where when you had a lobby full of 4,500 players, that was a very different lobby to 4,200 players. It'll be interesting to see how this works. It'll be interesting to see who gets champion, who doesn't. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. It should at least motivate people grind again, because I think that's definitely been a complaint that the highest ELO players have had for a while, so there's no reason to grind. Everyone's going to want the champion icon. Everyone's going to be there. So you're going to see a lot of people pushing hard for this. So that'll be cool. New competitive rewards and Jade weapons. Season 9 introduces Jade weapon variants, unlockable with the new 2024 competitive points. Earning Jade weapon variants will reflect your dedication to competitive play in 2024, not your highest rank achieved. Luckily, these new Jade weapon variants will not be as exclusive as the champion rank. You will progress towards earning competitive points just by playing the game mode, with more progress granted towards wins. Competitive points earned for winning and drawing a match have been rebalanced around this new progression system, which should make every match feel rewarding regardless of outcome. I don't know if people will care that much about the competitive points, but maybe people will care to get the Jade weapons. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. There are new points now, so you're gonna have to earn them again, I guess. It'll be interesting to see how much you get for a win. I'm curious how much this will motivate people to grind, and if it gives them something genuinely to grind for. Skeptically, I don't feel like if you lose, you're gonna be like, oh well, at least I got some competitive points. Or if you win, you're not gonna be like, yeah, 5 competitive points, only 2,995 more to go. I don't think that's gonna necessarily happen, but who knows. Legacy competitive points and golden weapons. Through the end of Season 8, players can still earn competitive points towards unlocking golden weapon variants. When Season 9 starts, your previously earned competitive points will be converted to legacy competitive points. You'll still be able to use legacy competitive points to unlock golden weapon variants, but the way you receive legacy competitive points will change. This is one more currency legacy switch that's going to get confusing. Once the 2024 competitive year closes, any leftover 2024 competitive points will automatically be converted and added to your legacy points, which can be used to unlock golden weapon variants. Interesting. Okay. It really doesn't matter, actually, whether you spend your points now or not, unless they add some sort of cap, which I don't think they will. Essentially, from now, whatever points you have are only going to be used for golden weapons. And then later, should you get some points, but in the year of 2024, if you either don't get enough for a jade weapon or you get somewhere in the middle, right? Let's say you get 5,000, so you get enough for one jade weapon, but not enough for a second. They're going to get converted, and the best you'll get is a gold weapon. Which might be annoying should you be relatively close to the end, towards the end. Like, let's say you enter December and you have 2,500 competitive points. You might be pressured to try and grind out the rest. That might create some end-of-year toxicity. Not that I think that this is like a significant thing to worry about, but especially in Overwatch 1, just to get set a lot. You don't want to play it towards the end of season because people get very like angsty because they're trying to reach a certain rank, and if they don't, they're going to be mad. It might be the case that in December time, everyone's desperate to get those last few competitive points to send them over the edge to get a jade weapon, knowing that should you fail, you're going to be demoted to legacy points that only get you golden weapons. Essentially, this is a seasonal model again, right? It's like they want jade to be the weapon of 2024. They'll probably come out with a new weapon in 2025, right? And then they want you to grind for that. Last chance to claim end of season bonuses. Starting in Season 9, competitive challenges that grant bonus competitive points are also changing. Season 8 will be the last season to claim end of season competitive challenges for Season 1 to 7. Log in before the end of Season 8 to grab any rewards from Season 7 or earlier that you haven't claimed yet. Once Season 9 begins, you'll be unable to receive past competitive points from completed competitive challenges, blah, blah, blah. Basically, they're starting a new system, so get your shit before Season 9 starts. Giving people a week is a bit harsh. Like Season 9, in fact, not even a week. Season 9 starts in 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 days. That's a bit of like a, oh shit moment. I mean, I don't think it matters too much because I can't imagine too many people cared. If you didn't care enough to log in, did you care enough to be like, oh no, I didn't get my points? Introducing changes to core gameplay. Beyond the competitive rework, Season 9 features major changes to fundamentals of Overwatch 2 gameplay that affect every hero. We've heard the community feedback around some gameplay pain points and developed changes to the core gameplay with these goals in mind. A. Deliver a more consistent feel to firing and landing your shots on your opponents. B. Lessen the impacts of burst damage to allow for greater counterplay. C. Adjust where in-game healing and damage are effective to reduce stagnant team fights. All of these changes have been designed to work in combination to balance each other out, and we're excited for you to get into the game and experience them all at once. So, for context, we're going to get now into all these balance changes. I have not looked at any of them beforehand. I haven't looked at the leaks, and on the NDA stuff, I just don't like participating in the preview access NDA stuff because I don't generally like being ahead of the general public. I don't feel like there's any huge benefit to me personally in like playing a season early. I prefer just experiencing the things as they come to the rest of the community, so I can kind of organically, as we're doing now, I can organically give my opinion rather than like being privy to information beforehand and then being like either having to lie that I don't know or hide what I do know or pretend that this is the first time I'm seeing it. When examining how burst damage values have changed over time, we found that in most cases they've gone down in raw value, though that may not necessarily mean they became weaker relative to other changes. The 5v5 environment and new heroes of Overwatch 2 certainly factor into the perspective, but it's often overlooked that the player base's average skill level, game knowledge, and pace of gameplay are relatively higher now than when the game first launched. Well, yeah, that's obvious. So they're changing projectile sizes. So plus 0.05 meters for hit scan projectiles with a high rate of fire or spread, so Tracer or Reaper. A bigger increase for the ones that are more precise, so like Cassidy and Soldier. That's probably going to be a big buff. I don't know. I'm just reacting as I go again. I don't really even know how big these are relative to the current size of them. So if someone in chat might know better than me who's already read these beforehand and seen people analyze this, I don't know how much bigger these are, but that sounds to me like a big change, but I'm not sure. The second one, the first one, impactful. The second one feels even more impactful because if like a soldier has a much bigger thingy, then that's potentially a lot of damage. 0.05 plus meters for travel time projectiles that are short shotguns have a very high rate of fire. So Roadhog, Ramatra, presumably like Torb. Iliari was 0.10, is now 0.05, so we're basically doubling it. Iliari would actually fall here, so she'd more than double. Cassidy's primary is now bigger than what Iliari's was on launch, which was complained to be big at the time, right? at the time, people were like, oh my god, it's so generous. Like, you can hit so much easier shots with Illari's primary fire. So her and Cassidy and Soldier are going to be even bigger, and Tracer will be about the same. Basically, this seems like a huge buff to shooting shit. So the faster travel time for projectiles with a speed greater than 50 meters. So Zen's Destruction Orb. So I think that's his primary fire. So stuff travels faster and is bigger. So they travel faster. So the hit scan are bigger and projectiles travel faster. So that they're more reliable to hit, presumably. Like, that's the idea. I think the idea is basically they're trying to make everyone more reliable in how they hit, because obviously a hit scan just bigger, easier. And then it's easier to anticipate how your projectile will travel if it travels fast. Again, if you think about it, a projectile, a hit scan is like an instant, right? So you click it and it instantly is there. So it's very easy to know when you did and didn't hit. And the closer a projectile gets to that speed, the more you can reliably anticipate, okay, that person's going to be here in half a second, so pew, over here. When it comes to aiming as a mechanical skill requirement, even players with excellent aim often mention how it can feel random whether a shot hits or not, due largely in part to the whip speed, movement, acceleration heroes have when changing directions. Combined with all the dashing, leaping, teleporting abilities, hitting your target can be very difficult. Crisp, responsive movement is important to the core gameplay feel, so you wouldn't want to just slow down player movement. Instead, we're improving hit consistency by making both damage-dealing hit scan and travel time projectiles larger. Heroes that have weapons or abilities that don't benefit from any projectile style changes will receive additional balance changes. However, we don't want to make too many hero adjustments before getting a better understanding of the effects of these initial changes, so tune in for more individual hero changes in the future. Essentially, they're just trying to make people hit more. I think arguably Overwatch is one of the games with the hardest ability to hit, because things move around very fast, as they're pointing out, and people are jumping and all that. In Valorant, you know, people don't move that fast, they don't change direction that fast, and where they come from is a lot more predictable. Now, I'm no expert in like server tick rates and stuff. I'm sure people who are talking about they could just improve the tick rates, because there's a lot of like inconsistent feel to like the registering of shots. They're kind of representing it as like the player thinks they should have hit but they didn't, but there are genuinely times when like your screen says you've hit and you didn't, or a thing that shouldn't have hit you does hit you, etc., etc. And those come from like lag. Obviously it can be like ping is going to be inevitable. I don't know the technical details of whether like there's room for Overwatch's servers to be technically improved, but this is another way, I suppose, of achieving it. But does this lower the skill floor? We'll see. It really depends on context. I don't want to go out and blanket say that this lowers the skill floor, because things are relative in a way, right? So if everyone aims easier, well, the people who are aiming better are still going to aim better. It might crunch the depth a little bit. It might reduce the gap between someone who aims really good versus someone who only aims quite good. But also it comes with a bunch of other changes, so we'll see what those entail. Adjusting health pools to balance gameplay. Since we're increasing the average accuracy of nearly all heroes and want to keep time to kill similar, we're also increasing everyone's maximum health. We've already balanced damage values, damage boost, critical damage breakpoints, and other factors around 200 to 250 HP heroes. The new health ends up requiring at least one more hit from most heroes to eliminate an enemy. So everybody's HP is going up. 150 to 175. That's just Tracer and Widow, right? Tracer's now 175, Widow's 200. Oh, Baby Diva. Okay, Baby Diva as well. Then 200 to 300 are 50 HP. 300 plus HP tanks increased by 75 to 100. This obviously is a lot more significant the lower down the scale you go. Like, I think a 200 HP character going to 250 in current Overwatch mind, in my current Overwatch mind, 200 going to 250 is like more significant than 500 going to 600 or 675. But in theory, this hurts tanks more than the others. It's not the same for the tank to survive one more shot versus a support to survive one more shot, right? Like, tanks already survive a lot of shots, so one more is relatively small compared to someone who would normally die to 2, dying to 3 is like a huge, like, 50% increase in the number of shots you can take. But again, that's off of current Overwatch mindset. That may change. Getting more self-reliance in team fights. We also want to make sure that the flow of the team fight doesn't take away from individual player decisions that can determine the outcome of a match. Tanks already have a significant role in each team fight, as they are often the ones to take space and determine where each fight takes place. Whereas, we want to enable more critical decision making among the damage and support roles. The changes to projectile size and health pools effectively reduce the impact of burst damage and tones down the relative strength of healing, meaning it will take longer to heal someone from 1 HP to full health. To ease the friction of an increased time to fully heal allies out of combat and enable support players to make more informed decisions on who to heal Everyone can now regenerate health passively at a rate of 20 health per second after 5 seconds of not taking damage. And the support role passive heal has been adjusted to 2.5 seconds. I think that's up from 2 seconds. An increased health pools and weakening of burst damage means that heroes live longer and team fights will take longer to conclude. To combat some of the potentially extreme situations there, we're also introducing a new damage passive, empowering them to more easily fulfill their role in securing eliminations, reduce in-combat healing, and potentially add an additional strategic layer to focus firing targets. So here's all new role passives. Passively, everyone regenerates. Damage role passive is that healing damage reduces the target's healing received by 20%. Updated support role passive will now begin regenerating 2.5. Tanks role passive remains the same. This damage change is significant, as has always been the case with the damage role passive. And I'll say it again, I just think the role passes are a shit idea now and we should move past them. This grossly benefits characters that have more bullets, like very, very simply, like you don't even have to, I don't have to think too hard about what ramifications this will have. 10 times better for Reaper and Tracer than it is for Hanzo and Widowmaker, right? Because if you tag someone, presumably it doesn't say there's like a minimum amount of damage you have to do. It just says dealing damage, right? So if you're a Tracer and you like get one pellet on their tank, it also doesn't say for how long the healing is reduced. But let's say you get one pellet on their tank, they're getting 20% less healing now for, I don't know, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Remember guys, it's only for DPS. So tanks, Diva, and Ball, they're not part of this. This is only for DPS, right? If you think about it, you're like Discord orbing them in a way just by tagging them. Whereas if you're Hanzo, right, your shots are less reliable and they kind of take longer to wind up and hit. And they're meant to be about burst damage. So any character basically whose damage comes in like shorter chunks, Pharah, Junkrat, Hanzo, maybe even Torb with his left click, Widowmaker outside of SMG, you are going to be much less effective against the tanks than you maybe already were, because you're not going to reduce their healing. At its core, Overwatch 2 is a competitive game, so it's important for the core systems and competitive system to be as intuitive and accessible as possible. In addition to these core system changes, we're introducing reworks to Pharah and Junkertown, which we'll go into in a later blog. The healing passive for everyone, I said this before the details were revealed, when we just knew that they were doing it. It's not going to be significant in the middle of a fight. Whatever they may say about allowing supports to blah, 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 like this is only 5 seconds is half the respawn time. And it's 20 health per second. It's only going to be relevant when you're flanking or when the fight is over and you're like waiting for your supports to heal, like come back from spawn. It will not, in my, I could be very wrong here, but it will not affect a mid-fight in any way, because 5 seconds to get 20 HP, right? So if you wanted 100 HP back, it would take you 10 seconds. 10 seconds of being out of combat, so not taking a single hit of damage to get 100 HP back. So again, that's like, that's a death cycle. That someone has died and respawned in that time. So that's a long time. Like fights very rarely go on that long, and you're not in a fight gonna go 5 seconds without anyone looking at you. And if you are, did you need the healing in the first place, right? If you went 5 seconds without someone touching you at all, you didn't need to get healed. You had 5 seconds of free damage. The people this will probably benefit the most are probably like the people who are like extreme flanking, or maybe like a Widow. Yeah, I can see Widow benefiting from this, but even then, like 5 seconds is a long time, guys. Because also 5 seconds, if I'm playing Tracer, I could just get a health pack in that time. I may as well get a health pack and heal up immediately and come back. You're never 5 seconds away from a health pack on most maps. Again, I could be very wrong, guys. I've not played any of this. I'm just going off of what I've read. The only times I can see this really even coming into play is like your supports died and you don't have to leave the cart to go get healed. Like that's basically it. And maybe if you're a tank, you might still, but like, okay, you have 100 more HP before the fight starts next time. Like, you're on push, your supports died and you want to keep pushing the bot. Now you don't have to go run for health pack. You just sit there on the cart, and in the 5 seconds that the next fight is starting, you're healed back up again. It's only gonna matter when a fight is over and your supports are dead and you don't want to have to go get a health pack. It's not gonna change anything about like a fight, I think. The biggest thing, as I said, is the DPS role passive, and I think it will very disproportionately benefit the faster shooters. And this is a big change as well. This is like probably the biggest change, because this is really gonna change how every hero feels. Like every single shooting hero is gonna feel different. Whether this is good or bad for the game, I really would want to play it before I come down on it as like this is terrible, it's reducing the skill curve. Because maybe it just makes playing Overwatch feel better. Because like ultimately we all like the feeling of hitting shots. The thing I'm more worried about is the hit scan. I think the hit scan benefit more than anything else. A Soldier or a Cassidy more reliably headshotting you may not compensate or may not be compensated by your health pool buff. Like these guys 2-tapping you, like a Cassidy 2-tapping you might still 2-tap you. I'm not sure of the exact numbers. I'll have to look it up. But he might 2 headshots and body shot you quicker and easier. Or not quicker, but easier, right? By and large, I feel like this change, sadly, sorry to say this because I know this is like a depression already. I think this hurts the tank players the most. So you know what? Ultimately though, here's what I will say. Whatever this does, I am glad they did it. I'm glad they shook the game up. I'm glad they were willing to take a big change. Of course, the caveat always is, if it's bad, I hope they revert some or most of it. I think Overwatch needs shakeups. I think it's very boring and stale often. Like it gets in a rut. It's not always exciting to launch and boot up Overwatch because it's not that much different. So having a new rank system, having these changes, having health pool changes, passive changes, it's a lot. It's cool content. It's going to be fun. And it will hopefully revitalize the feeling of playing Overwatch. Like hopefully we're going to be like, oh man, this feels like almost like a slightly new game, like a different game. And I like it and I'm excited. So shout out to the devs for trying it. Let's see how it plays. I think it should be fine, I think. But I do worry for tank players. That's my only like earmark. I think I worry for how this will affect tank players. But otherwise, it should be good.